Well, good morning. Today is Good Friday, and today is the 18th of April. And today we are in Exodus chapter 16, and I'm going to read yesterday's passage as well as today's. So we'll be reading chapter 16, verses 14 through 36, and was not able to get where I could do a video yesterday, so I apologize for that, but today we'll make it up. So verse 14 of chapter 16 says, "And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. And when the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, 'What is it?' For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, 'It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer, according to the number of the persons that each of you has in his tent.'" An omer was about 2 liters, or a couple of quarts. And they were to take an omer for everyone that lived in their tent. And according to the persons in their tent, verse 17, "And the people of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. But when they had measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much and had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, 'Let no one leave any of it until the morning.' But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, 'This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside.'" Mercy, sorry. A lot of pollen in there. So they laid it aside till the morning as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. And Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it on the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, there will be none." On the Sabbath day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain, each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that you may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years, till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah. So this is all about the manna, the bread from heaven that God provided for the children of Israel while they were in the wilderness, on the way to the promised land. Now there's a picture here. It's a picture of God's provision for his people on the way to Canaan. We could spiritualize this very easily and see that if we symbolize the wilderness as our time of sojourning here in this world on our way to heaven, the promised land, and if we take the words of Jesus, where he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven, and bread is what sustains us, then we could say that Jesus is the bread that sustains us here in this life until we get to heaven. I could preach that sermon. I could make that a sermon. I could easily tie those things together. And the fact that he commanded them to take an omer, or, a 2-quart, a jar, which I don't know what kind of jar. I guess it would have been like a clay pot. And they were to take that omer of manna, and they were to place it before the Lord. Now we know later, when God commanded Moses on Sinai to build the ark of the covenant, that jar of manna was one of the things that was placed inside the ark. And it was a testimony. It was a reminder for the people of God's provision for them during their time between being freed from bondage in Egypt till they reached the promised land. And we know that was 40 years. And it was 40 years because of the hardness of their heart, because they refused to take God at his word and enter in there at Kadesh Barnea when the spies were sent in. Remember, they sent 12 spies in, and 10 came back and said, oh, we can't take this land. There's giants in the land. There's great walled cities. They make us look like grasshoppers. Only Joshua and Caleb had faith and said, we can take this land. And ironically, or not ironically, it was only Joshua and Caleb who were allowed from that group, that whole nation, to go into the promised land. Even Moses wasn't allowed to go in because of the fact that he had struck the rock twice instead of one time, as God instructed. The picture here of the manna was an illustration. It was literal bread. Said it had a taste of honey. I don't know if it tasted like graham crackers or what, but we don't really know. The fact that it sustained them, it had nutritional value to sustain them in the wilderness, and it was supernatural food. There's no other better way to describe it. There's no scientific explanation for what this stuff was. There's no natural explanation for what it was. It just, the dew would settle on the ground, and every morning when they got up, it would be there on the ground around the camp, and they'd go out and gather it. I don't know what it was. It was bread from heaven, miraculously supplied. And it's interesting. There's an interesting illustration in the fact that you couldn't just go out on Monday and get enough for the week. I don't know how you work, how you do at your house, but you know, we typically go shopping once a week, or maybe once every other week, depending on what we're out of, what we need at the house. Sometimes we eat out, so we don't have to cook. But most of the time we go out once a week and we get the food we need, and that's it. They weren't allowed to do that. They had to go out every day and gather the bread they needed to survive. And there's a spiritual lesson there, right? The spiritual lesson. If we think of it as not just physical food, but spiritual food. You couldn't hoard it. You couldn't go get what you needed and it lasts you the whole week. You know, some people think that they can go to church on Sunday and get all they need spiritually for the whole week. Well, that's just not the case. You know, we're to meditate, we're to be in God's Word, we're to be in fellowship, in connection with the Lord every day, daily. David in the Psalm said, daily I will seek you. It needs to be a regular thing. You can't go days without food, without water, without sustenance, and be healthy. And especially if you're laboring, if you're in the field working. And so the picture is, God was teaching a lesson here about the fact that we need to daily go to Him for what we need. Remember the Lord's Prayer? In Matthew's Gospel, He taught us to pray. And He said, you know, one of the things in that prayer was, give us this day what? Our daily bread. He didn't say our weekly bread. He said our daily bread. And so, you know, there's a literal aspect to the bread, and we can read that and say, okay, now what are the lessons? What do we learn from this account of the bread? And, you know, the fact that God says take an omer of it and keep it as a testimony, because you need to be daily reminded or continually reminded of how God supplied the needs of the people as they wandered in the wilderness. You notice that it states in the passage we read that there were some of them that, even though Moses said, get what you need for today and don't keep it till tomorrow, some of them didn't do it. Some of them tried to go out and keep it till the morning, and it bred worms and it stank, and Moses was angry about it. And then some of them went out on the Sabbath day and tried to gather, and there wasn't any. It's like, how difficult is it? How difficult is it to just follow instructions? But apparently it's difficult. And we just need to understand that God is consistent. He says, give us this day our daily bread. We need to go to the Lord every day. You know, I've had people ask me, you know, why do you do these videos every weekday? And I'll admit that sometimes you know, I have to set aside the time to do it, and sometimes it's noisy in the house if the grandkids are over and spend the night, and maybe the weather is not nice where I can come outside where it's peaceful. And you know, I call it my quiet time, but sometimes it's not quiet. Sometimes even when I'm doing the video, I'll get a phone call. And it's not always convenient, let's put it that way. But the reason I do it is because I need to. And the fact that I know there are some people that, you know, watch these videos. And, you know, I hope that they're a blessing. I hope that they help someone. I hope that they're informative. I hope that they're instructive. But if nothing else, I hope that you understand the importance of having a daily time with God in God's Word. And it doesn't have to be a thing of, well, I've got to read through the Bible this year, so I've got to read 3 chapters a day and 7 on Sunday just to get through the Bible. You know, it's not the quantity of how much you read the Bible, it's the quality of your time in the Bible. Are you taking time to meditate on it? Are you really thinking about what you're reading? And, you know, if you're reading 3 chapters a day, there's so much look how much we get out of just a few verses every day. I mean, there's enough to chew on there. And so, you know, 2 quarts, an omer of this flake-like manna was enough for the day, and they ate their fill. You know, what's enough, what's too much? I don't think that there's anyone ever accused them of getting fat from eating manna, but they didn't starve either. And I think the point there is that God knows what we need, and He supplies what we need for the day. But we have to go gather it. We can't gather up twice, except for on the Sabbath day. They were only allowed to gather a day's worth. On the Sabbath day, on Friday, they would gather 2 days worth, so they didn't have to go out on the Sabbath. And that's the point of having a daily quiet time. Now, I don't do this often, but down in the corner of these videos, there's a little link where you can subscribe so that you'll get a notification when I post these videos. And I want to encourage you to do that and to like it and to share them. And I don't know a whole lot about algorithms and how all this stuff works, but I do know that I've been doing this going on 5 years now, and some of these videos get dozens of views, some just a few, but over time, if they get out there, if you share them, you never know who might watch, who might just be looking or going through something in their life. Oh, what's this personal devotion time? What's this? And they might hear a word from God that just encourages them and helps them, gives them the manna they need for that day. And that's why I do the videos. They're for me primarily because I need the time with God's Word, and I was taught that you really haven't done your quiet time until you've shared it with someone. And so I'm sharing it with you, and I just encourage you to spend time in God's Word and share it with others as well. And That's all I have for today. I know that today is Good Friday, and we had the Lord's Supper last night at church, and talked about the Passover and Jesus' betrayal. Good Friday is the day he was crucified. It's a day of sober reflection as we think about the price that was paid to redeem us from the curse of the law. I hope you're able to go to worship this Sunday. At our church, we have a sunrise service at 7 a.m. We have breakfast together and fellowship together, and then Sunday school. But I encourage you to go to church Sunday. And let's rejoice in the fact that Jesus rose victorious over sin, over death, and the grave. And because he lives, we too shall live. That's all I have. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you again on Monday.